had a good time at Cole Anthony's basketball camp because for some reason they tried to make this weekend about something else. Anthony extension talks in the crosshairs and a whole lot more on today's episode of Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is September 24th. It'll be September 25th by the time you listen to this. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the expert and site editor over at LendMagicDaily.com. You can follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, talk about the report, the thing, I don't know. We're going to talk about the thing that popped up Friday involving Cole Anthony and his extension talks. We'll dive a little bit more into what to expect from extension talks and why it's probably best for both the Magic and Cole that last to the end of the season. And then we'll ask our big question of the day, whether the Magic's closeness is going to translate into wins. To that coming up here in just a moment. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. To search for Locked On and the team you're looking for. The Locked On Podcast Network is your team every day. If I hate doing back-to-back podcasts on rumors and stuff like that. They are worth talking about. They are worth exploring and finding out what they mean. It's always worth it for me to remind you of how I approach these rumors and how I approach these reports and all that. And especially now that the season's getting ready to start, definitely should do some of that. And there are important issues that we need to talk about involved with rumors. So we are going to talk rumors. We are going to talk about some of these reports that came out and all that. If you are not habitually online, first off, congratulations on making good life choices. I applaud you. Unfortunately, my job requires that I am habitually online. And I, as well as several other Magic fans, came across an aggregated story that claimed that Cole Anthony could be traded before the start of the season. It was very poorly aggregated. Always go to the primary source, people. Always read the primary source, because it is certainly not the case that Cole Anthony is anywhere near imminently traded. In fact, he responded, quote tweeting directly the poorly aggregated tweet, or what it's called now, saying, come to my basketball camp. He tweeted the info for his basketball camp, which took place Saturday at UCF. Jamal Mosley showed up for it. Chuma Okeke was there. There's nothing here, guys. Again, poorly aggregated tweet. Always read the primary source. That's the big lesson of the day. Always read the primary source. I know whenever I cite something that I am not reporting or that I do not know, I try to tell you exactly where to find it. If you go to OrlandoMagicDaily.com and I cite something that is not widely publicly available or that I am not reporting myself, I show them work. I tell you exactly where to go to see the information. I try to quote directly the relevant information, and that's what we're going to do here. Eric Pincus, fantastic reporter, big salary cap guy, wrote on Bleacher Report essentially a prediction of all the rookie extensions that are left. And when he got to the Cole Anthony section, he kind of laid out laid out a little bit of what we know to probably be happening with Cole Anthony. And we're going to dive a little bit more into that here in a minute. But what caused the poor aggregation was a quote that he got from an anonymous player agent. This anonymous player agent said, quote, "I think they move Anthony maybe even before the season, but I don't think they extend him," end quote. That was it. People took that as gospel. People took that as fact. I saw the FanDuel Jazz blog pitch it, say that Jazz should monitor Cole Anthony, go after him. And I'm literally just sitting there like, with what? Like, again, if you're going to make a trade offer, make a trade offer. I mean, at least with Buddy Hield stuff, we're pitching around some trade ideas that make a little bit of sense. It's depending on which side you think's buying, which side you think is selling, whether it's a good idea or not. But, at least think through things a little bit. The Magic are not just giving away a good young player. In any case, on top of this, remember, it's important to remember the source. Eric Pincus is a good reporter. I'm not doubting that this player agent said to him. I am not doubting that this is a thing that is believed by this anonymous player agent. It was said. No doubt about it. But why are we taking what an anonymous player agent said as like fact? As like, oh, the Magic are getting ready to trade Cole Anthony. No. In fact, as I mentioned on the podcast on Friday when we talked about the Bud Hield stuff, the Magic very intentionally bet on continuity. The Magic are not going to, just knowing how Jeff Weltman operates, agents know when you're dealing with Jeff Weltman, you keep things in-house. Because if you leak things, Jeff is probably going to give you a little bit of the cold shoulder. We're not at the stage where we're dealing with agents who negotiate through the media. In fact, I think Weltman has done a very good job making it very clear to representatives, we're not negotiating through the media. We will take care of you. You know my reputation. You know how I take care of players. Don't negotiate through the media. That's not how we do business. So it's already suspect when something like this gets out. But again, remember, it's important to remember the source. This is an anonymous player agent. We do not know if this player agent certainly is not connected with Cole Anthony's people, almost certainly not connected to the Magic. It is really just sort of a man on the street. And again, I know I've met Eric. Eric's fantastic at what he does. I do not doubt that this person that Eric Pincus talked to said this, believes this, and it makes a little bit of a sense. If you're ultimately not going to re-sign Cole Anthony, why not open the trade doors and start talking? And I'm not going to sit here and say that it's impossible that the Magic trade Cole Anthony before the trade deadline. If they've decided they're not re-signing him, it would be irresponsible not to explore it. But again, nothing here is gospel. Nothing here is saying anything is imminent, or nothing there is to suggest anything is imminent. It is simply this. Cole Anthony is going to be a restricted free agent this offseason if they do not come to an extension agreement. And whenever a player is near free agency, they become trade fodder. It'd be silly not to explore a trade again. And there are real questions you have to ask excuse me, about Cole Anthony and these extension talks. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Cole Anthony is going to sign an extension. We're going to talk a little bit more about the kind of parameters of these negotiations, at least as we perceive them coming up. But this rumor just ran so wild. And a lot of Magic fans knew to push this aside and say, like, there's nothing here, guys. This is a poorly aggregated tweet. It's frankly embarrassing that Cole Anthony had to respond directly to the tweet, poorly aggregated tweet. And it's frankly, I mean, I get it. You're trying to get some perspective. And again, I'm not sitting here to say it's impossible that the Magic do this. I don't think they will. But it's, especially in today's day and age, frankly, it's a little irresponsible to do a man on the street type deal with this. Knowing how people are going to take it, knowing how the internet's going to run wild with these things. Now, again, I think a lot of Eric's analysis is fine, like saying that does not think the Magic are going to reach an extension with Cole Anthony. I'm explaining my reasons why I think that's true too. Whether the Magic do have a very crowded backcourt with Anthony Black now in the fold, with Jalen Suggs, who will be entering the back half of his rookie contract, with Markelle Fultz and his extension talks and his potential new contract also on the horizon. The Magic do have some questions they need to answer at point guard. And it's uncertain how Cole Anthony fits into that. But certainly what people ran with is not the situation. And so this is a good time to take a step back and kind of think a little bit about where Magic sit and where Cole Anthony sit as we look ahead to these extension talks and how all these pieces come together. After I'm done coughing, we're going to get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, it's time for a quick word from our friends at DoorDash. Do you love the convenience of getting what you want right to your door? Well, with DoorDash grocery delivery, you can stock up for the week or order last-minute cravings conveniently. You've trusted DoorDash to deliver your restaurant favorites, and now you can get grocery delivery that actually delivers too. With thousands of grocery stores to choose from, you'll find the best in your neighborhood and boost your local economy with each and every order. You'll get exactly what you ordered, or DoorDash will make it. Sit back and enjoy quality groceries just like you picked them yourself. Want even more value? You can save on all your grocery and restaurant favorites with a $0 delivery fee on all eligible orders with a Dash Pass membership. With easy substitutions right in the app and best-in-class customer support, DoorDash delivers groceries exactly how you want it. Get 50% off your first DoorDash order up to a $20 value. Use code LOCKEDON at checkout. Limited time offer, terms to apply. That's 50% off up to $20, no minimum subtotal, and zero delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter code LOCKEDONNBA. Don't forget, that's code LOCKEDONNBA. That's 2 N's, Locked On NBA, for 50% off your first order with DoorDash. We have talked at various points throughout the course of the offseason, previewing what we do expect to be extension talks between Cole Anthony and the Orlando Magic. It is the unfortunate reality, and, I can say that, I do know that there are people within the Magic front office who are just a little bit concerned about what happens when the business realities of the NBA do catch up to the scene. That's going to be something we're going to chat a little bit more about in the last segment of this show. But we are entering a really interesting and perhaps potentially dangerous time in the Orlando Magic's development and the Orlando Magic's progress as a franchise. Some of these rookie contracts are getting ready to run out. Cole Anthony is obviously a free agent this summer. Jalen Suggs and Franz Wagner will be free agents next summer. Summer of 2025. Paolo Banchero follows them, and so on and so on and so on. This is natural stuff. And so these players are graduating off their rookie contracts and taking their first big super money contracts. On top of all this, all of this in the background is you have Markelle Fultz's contract due up at the end of the season. Wendell Carter's contract will come up, I believe, in 2026, I think. Correct. It's 2025 or 2026. I'm blanking on when the contracts run out. But the Magic do have to start thinking and planning about their contracts. And on top of it, also understand that, yes, they're about to be a big money windfall coming into the NBA, where we are expecting the salary cap to start increasing by the maximum 10% every year for several years in a row once this new TV deal is done. So a contract that feels very big today may not feel so big in 2 to 3 years. So we got to keep that in mind when we're talking about some of these money things. But let's take everything in a vacuum. Has Cole Anthony deserved an extension? In a lot of ways, yes. He's done everything that the Magic have asked him to do. He was not reluctant, but he was a starter by default in his first 2 seasons. Averaged 16 points per game in his second season. He's proven he scored at the NBA level. Last year, he took obviously a step back offensively. His numbers went down, but so did his minutes. His 36 numbers were roughly the same. And he had a killer end of the season, averaging 14 points per game off the bench, shooting 41% from three. Essentially, what everyone is betting on, that includes the Magic as they exist today, that includes Cole Anthony, is that how he played after the All-Star break is something sustainable, that he can be a 14, 15 point per game guy off the bench and a 40% three-point shooter and a highly efficient three-point shooter. If he can do that, the Magic have a future Sixth Man of the Year candidate, and that is something that you pay money for. There are some counterbalancing interests here, though. Cole Anthony is all about his team. Let's make that perfectly clear. I don't think any contract talks will be a distraction. I don't think his personality will ever change. He is always going to be about his teammates. He's always going to be a big cheerleader for his teammates. He is going to treat everything as earned. He is not going to ask to be handed anything. He understands he has to earn everything. But he also believes, as every player should at this stage of their career, that they can do more, that he can be a starter. And I think as he hits restricted free agency, if he does hit restricted free agency, he is going to hope to land somewhere that will treat him like a starter, because for his first 2 years, he was the starting point guard of this team. And look, I think most Magic fans would sit here and assess this. Markelle Fultz is a starter on this team. And even so, I don't think a lot of us, not that Cole Anthony doesn't have the skill to be a starter or the production of value to be a starter, I think most of us view Cole Anthony as better coming off the bench, where he can be a little bit more assertive as a scorer, doesn't have to run the team as much, doesn't have to play against the top point guards in the league. And especially even on this Magic team, play off the ball a little bit with an Anthony Black, or what we did this year with Joe Ingles or Franz Wagner, running a little bit more points so that Cole Anthony can get more of the high value shots rather than some of the idle shots that, lead to inefficiency and can lead a player to put up good raw numbers, but very bad advanced numbers. This is where the Cole Anthony discussion gets really tricky because he has a lot to prove. Let's be real. Cole Anthony has a lot to prove. And again, it's just about making us see and believe that the way that he played at the end of last season is something he can stretch for an entire season. That's what's on the line. And for the Magic, it's waiting to see if that's true too. If Orlando can get Cole Anthony on a really good deal, they're absolutely going to do it. Whether it's 4 for 60, $4 in the $70 million range would be great for the Magic, but Anthony's not going to go for that. Cole Anthony believes he's a starter. He has said that publicly after games. He believes he can be a starter in this league and sure wants to be paid like it. Cole Anthony is probably looking for a contract in the $18 to $20 million range. Markelle Fultz was paid $17 million last year. That's probably his low end, especially considering how the league's going to inflate salary values here in the coming years. The Magic are probably looking to pay him in the $15 to $80 million range, if that. Like I said, a 4 for 60 would be killer. I'm betting Cole's looking for 4 for 80. And so the debate is going to be how close to 75 can he get? And again, maybe that's not where the Magic want to be. Maybe that's not where Cole wants to be. And it's going to be a challenge. And it's going to be actually saying like, hey, Cole, go out there and play your heart out. And let's see where we're at the end of the season. And for Anthony, he absolutely should bet on himself like that. He absolutely should say, like, I believe I can be this player. Let me prove it to you on the court, and we'll go from there. That's kind of the deal. That's kind of what's on the line for Cole Anthony this season. And honestly, like, I will agree with Eric Pincus. I don't think extension is going to come. I think there's a chance the Magic extend Markelle Fultz. Then there is a chance that they extend Cole Anthony. Because for Cole Anthony, it is so more beneficial to play out this season, whether he wants to stay with the Magic or not. And I'm sure he wants to stay with the Magic. I'm sure he loves it in Orlando. He loves his mates. This has been a great spot for him. He's developed really, really well. We're all really, really excited for him. I think he could be a Sixth Man of the Year. And there's no shame in that. But he's a young kid. He should be looking to expand his own opportunities. He should be thinking, how can I make the most of myself? And certainly, how can I maximize my salary? And he should be, I would be upset if he didn't think he was a starter. If he didn't think that was important. It's not, but status is everything. Minutes are everything. I get it. You want guys who are competitive and believe in themselves. Ego is not necessarily a bad thing. And again, I don't ever anticipate Cole Anthony being a problem in the locker room. That guy is all about his team and his teammates. All about his teammates. But he should bet on himself here. He should look at this season as a challenge to say, okay, let me show you what kind of winning player I can be. And let me show the league what kind of winning player I can be. And we'll see what salary that gets me in the offseason. Now, restricted free agency is very, very weird. There have not been a lot of teams, beyond, except for, when a team very clearly wants to retain a player, it's been very hard to attract players to move in restricted free agency. We've seen a lot of restricted free agents go way late. On top of this, for the Magic especially, it is certainly very, very possible that the Magic are thinking the same thing. Okay, we want to pay you. Right now we're this number, but we can get to this number if you do X, Y, Z. And for the Magic too, it's probably a benefit for them to play things out as well. And to believe in play, they say like, okay, we believe you're right here. We think you could get to right here. Get here. Get up to $20 million. Make us pay you $20 million. Because we will if you knock these things off. If team achieves these things. If you don't, the offer that we have for you in the offseason that we have for you today is probably going to be there. Unless you really play now. I personally, I don't think the Magic are interested in trading Cole Anthony. Unless a killer deal comes around, they have to take. I don't think the Magic are going to be a team that is looking to, buy at the trade deadline or do anything like that. Maybe by then they'll be comfortable enough to trade a Gary Harris and see what that can get them. But I don't anticipate the Magic being a super at trade deadline team. Maybe some stuff on the margins, maybe clearing out some of the veterans to let some young guys play because they're very comfortable with where they're at in the playoff chase. I don't see the Magic making massive changes at the deadline. That's just not who this front office is. And so I do think that the Magic have every intention to retain both Markelle Fultz and Cole Anthony. Provided they have good seasons, I think they have every intention of retaining. The question is the price. And again, I think Cole Anthony is probably looking somewhere closer to 20, and I think Magic are probably looking somewhere closer to 15. And next summer, they'll probably end up at like 18 and a half or 19. And you can debate whether that's fair or not, whether you do that or not. I think that is debatable at this point. And that's why both sides are probably likely to let things play out this year and see where the chips fall in June and July. We'll get to our big question today as we get closer and closer to training camp. Is Magic's closeness going to lead to wins? We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. So, we don't have a lot to work with right now. And so I was listening back, I spent the last week on Orlando Magic Hub, my Patreon page, if you want to check it out, Orlando Magic Hub. I spent the last week listening back and replaying some of the comments made by the Magic legends at the 35th anniversary tip event. And, Ryan Anderson, who did a great job emceeing the event, by the way, made a really interesting comment. Talked about how so much of what made the Magic teams he was on from the 2010 season to 2012 was the culture that was built. And obviously he arrived in a culture that was already pretty well established with Stan Van Gundy, with Dwight Howard, with Nelson. He has been a part of a team with a successful culture. Culture started to split a little bit at the seams around, just after he arrived, or a year after he arrived, but there's nothing to that. Obviously your stars and your coach set your culture a little bit, and culture, I heard it really well defined. I'm forgetting where was I watching that defined it? I was watching some college football thing and they define culture really, really well. Culture is really defined at what do you do when it's hard. It's easy to claim you have a good culture when you're winning, when everything's working. Culture is what you do when it's hard. And, I listened back to what Ryan said. And it made think, well, the Magic seem to be establishing a really good culture again. Jamal Mosley is extremely open with his players. He works hard with the guys. It seems like the Magic are establishing this culture of hard work, determination. Like, this is a group that wants to win and is fighting and trying to figure out how to do it. It's really exciting. This is a really, really exciting season coming up. We're super duper excited for it. The question, though, and this has always been the question, because you hear Doc Rivers say it all the time, some of my best teams didn't like each other, but when you got between the lines, they did their jobs and they did everything. Some of the worst teams he's coached, really got along. But I think Steve Clifford said this. A lot of coaches say the same things. But a lot of teams struggled with the teams that got along well. The Magic generally, even during this decade-long rebuild, have generally had groups that liked. And so the question, as always, is, does closeness equal winning? Does having a team that is very tight-knit, that is very together, equal winning? And like I said, I've heard from some people within the Magic organization that are at least a little bit concerned about what happens to this group when they have to start peeling some players off. We'll talk some Chuma Okeke here later on in the week. But he's probably a casualty. Gary Harris is probably going to be a casualty soon. Eventually, all the big trade rumors that a lot of us want to talk about, one of them is going to be true, and the Magic are going to have something really valuable to get a player that can maybe help them get over the top. This is a thing that's going to happen, and the Magic have kept themselves very insulated from the business of the NBA. Trading Terrence Ross was a big deal. Letting Bull walk is a big deal, but so far as we can tell, it hasn't changed the team. It hasn't changed the makeup or the chemistry. None of the big players on this team have gone away. What the Magic are hoping happens then is that they have this closeness, but this closeness brings accountability. And maybe that's what was missing from previous versions of the Magic that liked each other. The Magic are hoping that because everyone is close, because they're friends, they'll be able to say hard truths to each other. They'll be able to tell a teammate, hey, you got to pick this up. Or, hey, this is where you're supposed to be on a switch or in an offensive set. That they'll be able to talk real to each other because the relationship is deeper than basketball. In a lot of ways, that's on the court. That's what this season's about. We've talked a lot about, Magic's general message this season has not been about making the playoffs. It's been about playing better basketball. Jamal Mosley repeated it on the Hoop Side podcast with Michael Scotto last week. He said it in several of his media availabilities since the season ended. Jeff Waltman has said it. General manager Anthony Parker has said it. The goal is to play better basketball. And the way that I have taken that is to say the team needs to play more mature basketball. Fewer mistakes, valuing possessions, not repeating the same mistakes, not, keeping control of their emotions, of the tempo of the game, no matter what. Things that young teams struggle with. It's essentially a statement like, if we want to win and get where we want to go, we know there will still be growing pains, but we need to grow up a little bit. And the hope is that because everyone is on the same page, because everyone generally likes each other, they're going to be able to hold each other accountable to that standard. They're going to be able to set a standard to hold themselves accountable to. Jamal Mosley is not simply there to babysit them. He is there to hold them accountable, to help create leaders that will create this culture that will lead to winning. We are in a critical season. Regardless of the result is the least result's important. I'm not going to sit here and say it's not. The result is going to be part of a process. And the process that is formed, whether it leads to the playoffs, whether it doesn't lead to the playoffs, that's the part that's going to be under scrutiny this season. That the Magic are putting themselves in a position to use this season as a springboard. And if they don't, figuring out what they need to do to fix that. This is a season to figure out what the actual problems on this roster are. Hopefully in a playoff series, you start adding players to supplement skill rather than saying, oh, we've got some deeper problems that we need to solve and figuring out, how to cut out the rot. I don't think the latter is going to happen. I think the former is. I think the Magic are going to be a playoff team or they're going to be a postseason team. And we're going to learn, okay, these are the skills. These are the kinds of things that we need to take that next step to make Paolo and Franz that much better. That's what's on the line this season. This season is about accountability. And yes, there are contract talks. Markelle Fultz is going to be a free agent at the end of the season. I don't know what his extension talks going to be like. I am certain he's going to look for a contract in the $20 million per year range. He too might be a player where the Magic say, okay, we've got this deal on the table. We think you can get a little bit higher. We're willing to hold that cap room to get you a little bit higher. Go out and prove you're worth it. And again, he can prove it. I mean, we haven't seen a fully healthy Fultz. The other side of that coin, of course, is, if the Magic really do Markelle Fultz about to take that leap, maybe they put a contract offer out there now, get it done, get him for cheaper than maybe he's actually worth because he's going to have a really good season. That's part of the prisoner's dilemma of contract negotiations. This season, though, is about that accountability. It's about building that culture and showing us who this team is as a playoff team. Thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast and Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all of the places on the podcast to your podcast-enabled device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can also check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub. You can find a link on my Twitter account at PhilipR_OMD, or go to Patreon.com and search for Orlando Magic Hub. You'll see all the things I'm working on, extra stuff on top of my Orlando Magic daily content. Plus, once practice starts, I'll be posting some video. I'll be posting a lot more stuff once the season starts. So definitely check that out today. And I'm hoping to add some more goodies as we get deeper into the season. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. For Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for an episode of Locked On Magic.